Zane. Hi, my name is Amy John, and I'm here to speak about death with dignity, physician-assisted death or dying. My aim is to bring awareness to what death with dignity is, why it is necessary, and some startling statistics pertaining to it. According to the Death with Dignity National Center, physician-assisted death is the process that allows terminally ill adults to request from their physician, receive from their pharmacist, and take a lethal dose of medication to end their life. The decision is voluntary, and only the person receiving the medication can self-administer it. It is also known as physician-assisted suicide. Although the name is now frowned upon, physician-assisted suicide is an inaccurate, inappropriate, and biased phrase which opponents often use to scare people about death with dignity laws. Suicide is very different from death with dignity. Suicide is the act of intentional and the voluntary ending of one's life. Usually, most people who die by suicide have a mental illness, such as depression, at the time of their death. It is a permanent solution to a temporary problem because suicide ends a life that would otherwise continue, unlike death with dignity. People using the death with dignity laws do not wish to be referred to as suicidal, mentally incompetent, or emotionally depressed. People with a terminal illness do not want to die, but are by definition dying. They are facing an imminent death and want the option to avoid unbearable suffering and the loss of their autonomy in their final days, thus dying with dignity intact. A report by the National Institute of Health notes that in published studies, pain is not a dominating factor either in patients seeking death with dignity. The reasons for seeking to die are usually issues of dependency and the loss of control and autonomy. According to the Gospel Coalition, 5 states currently have legalized assisted death or dying. Those states are California, Oregon, Washington, Montana, and Vermont. However, that number may soon increase since 9 other states have pending physician-assisted death legislations enact. Those states are Kansas, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. According to the Gallup survey in 2015, nearly 7 in 10 Americans say doctors should be legally allowed to assist terminally ill patients in committing death with dignity. Support of this issue has risen significantly in the last decade. The specific method in each state varies, but mainly involves a prescription from a licensed physician approved by the state in which the patient is a resident. According to CNN, in Oregon, the physician must be a doctor of medicine or doctor of osteopathy, licensed to practice medicine by the Board of Medical Examiners for the state of Oregon. The physician must be willing to participate in the act. Oregon has had a physician-assisted suicide laws on the books since 1997. Since its enactment, there has been a steady increase in both prescription recipients and the number of deaths. According to the 2017 data summary, as of January 19, 2018, prescriptions have been written for 1,967 people, and 1,275 patients have died from ingesting the drugs that they were legally prescribed to them under the law. In the District of Columbia, to obtain the medication, a patient shall make 2 oral requests separated by at least 15 days to an attending physician, submit a written request signed and dated by the patient to the attending physician before the patient makes his or her second oral request, and at least 48 hours before a covered medication may be prescribed or dispensed. As you can see, each state is different in how they observe the law. Oregon is really the pioneer state in physician-assisted death. October 27, 1997, Oregon's Death with Dignity Act became law. It passed in the 1994 election with 51% of voters in favor of it. Although the law was delayed initially because U.S. District Judge Michael Hogan ruled it unconstitutional, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed the ruling when the Supreme Court referred the matter back to the state in 1997, referring to the June 1997 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that state laws banning physician-assisted suicide did not violate the Constitution. The court left the matter of constitutionality of the right to physician's aid in dying to the states. The latest state to pass the death with dignity laws is California. According to the New York Times, California's End of Life Options Act, supported by 76% of Californians, passed state legislature and was signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown and went into effect in June 9, 2016, currently reinstated after being overturned in May 2018. This is a big step in the right direction. Would you want to be terminally ill and have no options but to die a slow, painful, and absolute death? Don't you think every person should have the option to die with dignity? Brittany Maynard did. She was a 29-year-old young lady with terminal brain cancer and ended her life under Oregon's Death with Dignity Act. She had to move to Oregon following her January 1st, 2014 prognosis to take advantage of the Death with Dignity law. There was no such law at the time in her home state of California. Don't you think it is unnecessary to uproot a terminally ill person because it is only law in certain states? If this were law everywhere, she wouldn't have moved from her home, family, and friends to die how every person should, with dignity. The greatest human freedom is to live and die according to their own desires and beliefs. I made this little poster here saying that I support death with dignity, and this is a little saying from Brittany Maynard. It's basic human rights. And this lady here, she watched her dad die for 2 years because he couldn't do anything about dying. So he did not get to die with dignity. Thank you.